subtracting integers and multiplying integers. 2.4, subtracting integers. Here are some examples. A -2 minus 3. If you know how to add two integers, then you can use the same rules to subtract positive and negative integers. And you can do so by changing the subtraction problem to an addition problem. For example, this -2 minus 3 can be written as -2 plus a -3. You can change this subtraction sign out and replace it with plus a negative. Once you're in that position, you have two negatives, three negatives. How many negatives do I have altogether? So the answer is -5. Again, minus a positive is the same thing as plus a negative. You cannot do this chart with this problem as it's written. You can only do the chart with addition, so change it to addition by changing out the negative sign and putting in plus a negative. 5 minus a -4. Anytime you have a double negative, which is what this is, minus a negative is considered a double negative. When those signs are back to back like that, you can change those out for a plus sign. A double negative changes to plus. 5 plus 4 is 9. If I had 3 minus a -2, that's the same thing as 3 plus 2, which is 5. If I had a -2 minus a -6, I can change it to -2 plus 6. But then I would still need my chart. 2 negatives and 6 positives. What am I left with? 4. Answer would be 4. A -3 minus a -7. What does this change to? An operation sign. Plus, yeah, -3 plus 7. A double negative is a positive, but in this case we have to call it a plus sign because it's in between two numbers. So -3 plus 7. Do your chart. You have 3 negatives and 7 plus signs. Cancel, cancel. What's left? 4. Positive 4 is the answer. If I have a minus sign, what can I change that minus sign to? It's two things that go in there in place of a minus sign. It's what? I can't hear you. Not division. Yep. Not multiplication. No. Remember what we did this problem back a while ago? This can change to plus a -8. When I do that, I have 5 positive signs, and then I have 8 negative signs. If I cancel out these 5 signs with these 5 signs, what am I left with? 3 negatives, so the answer is -3. For the practice problem, you have a double negative, which can change to -2 plus 4. Then you have 2 negatives and then 4 positives. Cancel these 2 with these 2 and be left with a +2. For this problem, you have A, B, and C. They're equal to certain numbers. To do this problem, you have to plug in the numbers. So in this case, C is -4. Plug in -4 for C. C is a -4. Subtract A. A is a -3 from here. Put it in parentheses, the -3. And then plus B. B is a -2. Put it in parentheses. It would be -4 plus 3 plus a -2. And when you have addition and subtraction, in order from left to right. You just do them 2 at a time, starting from the left. So in this case here we have 4 negatives and then 3 positives. Cancel these 3 with these 3, and what are we left with? Negative 1. But we still have plus a negative 2 at the end of the problem we have to put there at the end. So we have another problem to do. We have 1 negative and 2 negatives. How many negatives do we have? 3 negatives. So the answer is negative 3. Multiplying integers for 2.5. Here are the rules for multiplying integers. If I multiply a positive times a positive, I get a positive. If I multiply a negative times a negative, I get a positive. If I multiply a positive by a negative, I get a negative. And negative times positive is a negative. If the signs are the same, then the answer is positive. If the signs are different, then the answer is negative. What sign will the problem at the top have? Negative. It'll have a negative answer. 2 times 3 is 6. So the answer is negative 6. If I have negative 3 times a negative 2 times a negative 1. Those rules can apply to this if you do it 2 at a time, starting from the left. Negative times negative is positive. Yes, so I would have a positive 6, and then times a negative 1 would give me what? Negative 6. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times a negative 1 is a negative 6. Or you could do it like this. Same problem, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1. If you have an even number of negative signs, then the answer is positive. If you have an odd number of negative signs, the answer is negative. How many negative signs are in this problem? 3. So the answer will be what sign? Negative, because 3 is an odd number. And the answer is still negative 6. What would the sign of the answer be that was positive, negative, positive? It would be negative, right, because how many negative signs? 1. Is 1 an odd number? Yes. What if I had positive times positive times positive? What sign? Positive. What if I had negative times positive times negative? Positive, right, because you have 2 negative signs. 2 is an even number, therefore the sign of the answer would have to be positive. So if you look at some of these problems in here, what would the answer be to this problem? It would be negative because you have 3 negative signs. 1, 2, 3 negatives. Answer is negative, and what is the answer? Negative 10 is right. Yeah, 2 times 1 times 5. What if I had 4 numbers? How many negative signs are in this problem? 3. So what's the sign of the answer? Negative. 3 is an odd number, so it's a negative answer. And you could do 6 times 2 to get 12, and then 4 times 2 to get 8. 96 altogether. Negative 96 would be the answer.